And we're back for another one.
Always
Welcome back to We Are Not Experts in Airplane Building podcast. I'm Chris,
I'm Tim.
and we are not experts. And if you haven't figured that out by now, you'll figure it out by the end of the show. Today is February the 18th, 2025. And this is episode 6 of what I'm sure will be more than 6 episodes of We Are Not Experts in Airplane Building podcast. Tim, how the hell are you?
I'm getting over being sick. How are you?
I'm getting over being healthy, and I'm trying to undo it with Doritos and bean dip, and we'll see
There
how
you go.
that goes. Yeah. And where are you?
I am home, at least for this week. I won't be next week, but I'm home right now in the office where all the editing happens. Nobody's seen this before. The only videos we've done was me on the road doing this from an iPad in a hotel room. So,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah, this is where the magic happens.
yeah, so for our listening audience around the world, this is an opportunity to give you a little taste of the sort of uniformity that ultimately that we're looking for within our channel, not with just respect to our amateur building skills, but like our podcasting ability and our podcasting studios. So Tim, lean back and forth a little bit.
Try and get this thing
And
moved.
what you'll find is that Tim and I have equally squeaky chairs, and
All right.
we're
Yeah,
podcasting from equally echoey rooms. So
that's right.
because we feel like it's on brand.
It adds to the ambiance, really.
It does. Yeah. And that's a good thing, because ambience might be the only thing that the show has worth it that has a value. Okay. So it's been a couple days more than 2 weeks since the last time we put out an episode. Um, and I don't look at the analytics too much because I like to enjoy my life. But our friend in Florida, Mark, we'll just call him Florida Man, he said that he is going to be traveling to Central America, and so we might pick up a sixth country listening
Nice.
if we're able to put this out in time before he gets back home. So hopefully we can make that happen so that we can continue to spread the gospel of amateur airplane building.
Very amateur.
So what's new with you in your build situation?
Well, let's see. Spent the last several days working on wingtips. I came home from the trip, and finally my hinge material was here. If anybody saw those videos, I actually got twice the amount of hinges that I needed to have, because I ordered from Vans and I ordered from Across Spruce and didn't cancel one before the other, and they both showed up at the same time. That's fine. I'm sure there's going to be a million and one uses for hinge material, or I'm going to screw up other things as we go along. So it doesn't hurt to have them. Speaking of screwing stuff up, if you watch those videos, I went through the initial fit up of mounting those hinges to the tips, and then where you cut them out after you get them plecoed to both sides and all the holes drilled. That went well. What did not go well was on the left wingtip. I let the Dremel kind of get away from me a little bit when I was cutting the flange off, and I cut too much into the wingtip. So when I put it on, you'll have to look at the video, but yeah, you could see a big gap. You could see part of the hinge zipper line that you're not supposed to be able to see. So that was followed up by another video where I backfilled that with some fiberglass tape and some flocks and resin, and made it almost like it never happened. And I was on a high that worked out well. And then I got back into riveting the hinges onto the wings, which went well. And then it was time to rivet the hinges onto the wingtips, which was getting pro sealed on and riveted on. And that's where things went sideways on me again.
Mm. So I'm glad you started with this particular topic, because speaking of Florida Man Mark, he sent a comment that he thought a good thing for us to talk about would be mods, and what you're doing with the wingtip is
Definitely a mod.
definitely yeah. Why don't you, for the unfamiliar, and before we do this, I'll I'll address another comment that was made um, by a not Florida man. And that is when we use visuals, because we have in the video podcast that we need to constructive criticism. We need to do a little bit better job for the listening audience only of describing what it is that we're showing. So knowing that, even though we're not going to show your mod, imagine that you're Vin Scully and you have this uncanny ability to describe the visual world for the listening audience.
Okay. So think of how I want to do this. So the wingtips on Van's aircraft, the RV7, the RV8, I assume the 9, even though the wing's a little different, they all mount from the factory. They're supposed to mount the same way. The wingtip is a fiberglass molded tip, and it has a built-in recessed flange that fits inside of the outboard wing skin. There are some pre-punched holes in the wing skin there, and the idea is that you either, and it's left up to the builder to kind of decide, you either attach all of these tips on horizontal stab, the wing tips, whatever, with pull rivets through the pre-supplied holes. If you want to remove them and put them on again, one of the suggestions Vans gives is you can put nut plates in there, and you can use, I think it's number 6 screws to hold those on, still using the flange material and everything they provide you that's molded in. But another mod, which is what I'm doing, that several others had come up with, is to use hinge material. And this is something Vans does do on the cowling later on to hold the hinge or the cowl halves together. Basically, you attach one half of each hinge on one side of the two things you want to attach. And then when you want to hold them together, you put them together and you slide the hinge pin through them, and that keeps them locked together. And then you just have to find a way to secure the hinge pin from coming out.
Okay.
What works well on the wingtip. Oh, go ahead.
Let me pause right there just for the sake of description. So the wingtip basically slips into, it's almost like that the open end of the wing is almost like a sleeve that it can just fit into because it has that flange, that recessed flange. It's maybe like 3/4 of an inch that runs around the entire wingtip. So it can just sort of pop on there like a cap, where where the fiberglass is now recessed inside of the wingtip a little bit. And the wingtip already has a whole bunch of holes, so we can choose to rivet it on there. We can choose to put nut plates on the fiberglass wingtip and then use what you said, maybe number 6 screws to screw them in, or we get to this one, which is a modification that I'm also interested in, which is using piano hinges. And we've mentioned piano hinges a number of times, but basically just a long, lightweight aluminum hinge. And if there's a hinge on the wingtip and then a hinge on the end of the wing, once they mate up and sort of zipper together, then you just slip the hinge pin in and they're held together. And then the last thing that you were saying was, now we got to make sure that that hinge pin doesn't just like slide right out. So
that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been done by a bunch of people. It's well documented. I linked it in the video, instructions. One thing, that bit me yesterday, I think it was yesterday when I did it. Yesterday, I can't keep the day straight. I've been so tired and worn out from the flu. And I probably shouldn't have been doing any of this while I was out doing that, because that's part of what caused it, is I just didn't pay attention. It's recommended repeatedly by a bunch of different people, although it's scarce when you go look for it. But once you make the mistake, it's like the information's everywhere. Like, oh yeah, everybody knows that. But there's 2 types of solid rivets that we use on this plane. Well, there's one type we primarily use, and it is, for the case of this, a countersunk rivet. It's a 426 AD 3-3.5.
Okay.
That's what I used in this wingtip. The AD designation is the high tensile strength hard rivet. It's a aluminum alloy, so it is harder than straight pure aluminum. The problem with that, it's great when you're riveting structures together. It is not so great when you're riveting into fiberglass, because the fiberglass has some give to it. So I went through and riveted that first wingtip. Didn't really catch till the end, but after I got done squeezing all of them, you could go back and see there were spider cracks in the gel coat of the fiberglass wingtip. around most of the rivets in that wingtip. Now, the hinge is also bonded on with Pro Seal. So even if I drilled all those rivets out, I don't think that hinge would let
It
go
can't
of
come
that.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to come off. And I don't think those cracks actually go into the fiberglass. I think it's just in the gel coat. But it's
Yeah.
what I should have used were 426A 3-3.5 rivets. And the A stands for pure aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
They are a softer rivet. They have half the tensile strength, which I think the tensile strength is still like 16,000 pounds or something crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's half the strength, but more than strong enough for holding on fiberglass parts.
Okay.
And that is what you should be using when you're solid riveting into the fiberglass. So I did not do the other wingtip yet. I have since ordered several of those rivets. They are on their way. I have sent a message with a picture of my latest buffoonery to Van's tech support. I am waiting to hear back from them. I've given them a couple of options of what I think should be done. The easiest of which would be I'm just going to try and sand off the gel coat around where the cracks are and make sure that it doesn't go any further. And if it doesn't, call it good and just kind of go over it with some micro and some resin. If they say it needs to be redone, then I suspect the next thing I'll have to do, which I hope it doesn't come to that, is drill out every one of those rivets. The hinge material will stay behind because it's bonded, and then sand down through the gel coat and into the fiberglass until I've got all the cracks out, and then bond new fiberglass and resin onto it to kind of strengthen back up what I might have cracked. That sounds like a lot of
Dang.
work.
It
I
does
hope it
sound
doesn't
like a
come
lot
to
of work.
that, but
I'm gonna
we'll
I'm
see
gonna
what happens.
share the photo that you shared with me.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Let's
So,
show remove time.
and let's see. I bet I can probably zoom this in a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's the
Okay.
bad one right there.
Yeah, that's the bad
But you can
one,
see
and
it
it
in
does
all.
look pretty bad. But as I looked at it, especially when I looked further down the line at some of the other ones, one thing I thought was when I go to the airport and I look at fiberglass parts that are riveted on planes that are flying right now. This is pretty much what I'm used to seeing. Although that bad one does look pretty bad, but it's not uncommon. So I thought, oh, maybe it's not the worst thing. But I'll be interested to see what you find out from Vans and if you have to get too deep in there. Now you talked about it earlier with the Dremel. You did do some fiberglass repair already, but this would be a bit more, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know. The other repair actually went a lot easier than I thought it would. I mean, everything went exactly the way that I planned, which shocked me.
Now
And it
that's how
came out
most
really
things go
well.
in my shop.
Yeah. Everything always goes to plan. No, it was more of standing back going, I can't believe that worked. But it did, and it really wasn't that bad. So I'm feeling a lot more confident with fiberglass work than what I originally was. I mean, you can really make a multitude of sends and just kind of, oh well, go back and fiberglass over it again. It's not like aluminum when you accidentally punch a hole and now you're pretty well screwed.
Yeah. So before this, other than like cutting and sanding, what had you had any like fiberglass, like done any real fiberglass work like this? Because you used cloth and you kind of created a new piece. Or
No, not on the airplane. I did my trim tabs. I filled in with the foam and
oh, that's
the
right.
micro balloons and all that, but that wasn't really fiberglassing. The last time I've ever actually done any real fiberglassing was probably an RC airplane that was made of foam like 10 years ago that I decided to glass over the wings and try and make it something it wasn't. And I turned it into a flying brick. So that was about the extent of it. So this is the first time it's happening on a real airplane, hopefully without the, flying brick part of it.
Yeah. I have a question for you about this, by the way. I ordered and received, we'll talk about shipping and receiving here in a minute, but I ordered and I received my stuff from West Systems. So epoxy hardener, the little like measuring pumps thing, and some microlight. When you're saying like micro balloons, are you talking about the West Systems microlight, or are you talking about something
They're
else?
micro glass balloons, or glass beads, really. And
Mm.
I bought mine from Aircraft Spruce. You can buy them by the pound. Same thing with Flux. I bought them both from Spruce at the same time. So I haven't bought from West Systems. I'm sure it's probably the same thing.
Well, when you say buy by the pound, this is kind of related to my question because when I was ordering it and they kind of all go together. Typically, you can order it as a kit, and I think it's called Microlite, but it's the micro filler, whatever. And there was a 2 ounce and a 5 ounce, and I thought, well, the price difference was fairly significant. It's not inexpensive, but I've got a lot of fiberglass work to do. 2 ounces doesn't sound like very much. So I got it. And once I took it, and you don't have anything for reference, like for scale, like when you see that canister of the micro whatever, it's by itself. When you see the gallon, I think it's a gallon of epoxy and then like a smaller thing of hardener, you see them next to each other so you have scale. So I opened up my package and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should have gotten a 2 ounce because this thing is huge. I mean, the
You
canister,
haven't
this
seen my tubs of it, have you?
no, the 7 ounce canister of that filler is taller than the 1 gallon jug of it weighs nothing. It feels like it's empty, but it's really tall. It's like the world's biggest Pringles can. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
man.
ours, I'm trying to see if I can find it real quick so I can tell you how much I ordered, but there's a significant difference. Like I have mine, it came in a plastic bag inside of a box, so I had to find a container for it. So
Oh,
mine,
that's right. Yeah, I
mine
now
is
remember.
actually in, yeah, plastic, like storage containers. I can't remember how big they are, but
Mhm.
they're slightly bigger than shoebox size. And there's a couple inches of material in each one of them. So there's a significant amount. I think it was like a pound, maybe 3 pounds of each
Holy
that I've
crap.
got.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot. So I don't know if yours is the same stuff. And
that
I
is a
mean, it
lot. Like when
wasn't
you're done, you can make a whole other like baby airplane to drag behind your airplane, you
probably.
know. Yeah, when you're flying. That's cool.
Let's see. There it is. I just found it. First try even. Uh, so the glass, it was called glass 3M glass bubbles is what I bought. And I bought
Mm.
1 pound of it and it was $11.50.
What? Okay. We're
And then I
talking
bought one
about
pound of the cotton flocks and that was $4.80 for a pound of it.
okay, so what I ordered was very much different price wise and very different in volume. This is microlite filler, 5 ounces, and it is not $4 or $11. It's $50. So 410 microlite is the ideal low density filler. When blended with epoxy, it creates a light, easily workable fairing compound. So I wonder if this serves the same purpose or if it's a different purpose and I just got
Let me
hosed.
see. I wonder, can I share my screen and then go look at it so I can show you what I'm
Yeah.
looking at here?
Yeah.
Let's try this.
All right,
Share
people who are listening, we're going to share screens here.
screen.
There's going to be visuals, and we're just talking about canisters of stuff for
There we go.
comparison.
Can you see that?
I can see, yeah, 3M glass bubbles with a baggie. It's just like a poorly packaged bag of cocaine, it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
it looks interesting coming through the mail.
Yeah, I think that would actually make it through Customs and Border Patrol because nobody would pack the cocaine that sloppily. They would just go, that's probably just
Yeah, it
microballoons.
can't be. Yeah,
Yeah.
who would ever do that? So yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I bought. And this was all of this stuff that I bought. The flocks, the foam that I used. That was here's the flocks.
Yeah.
This was based on Smitty's RV in Canada.
Right.
And he did his demo on how he closed out his ends with the foam and all that. I know you saw the same video. So this is
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What
I
was the
went and
name of
found the same stuff that he used, which is this flux, those
Yeah.
micro, and then this foam.
So I've had that foam sitting on my shelf. It's this PVC foam. It's been sitting on my shelf for 3 years. It's probably completely worthless at this point. It's got to be completely degraded. What was the name of? It wasn't Smitty. What was the name of that channel? That was a good channel when
It
he was.
was, and he had some great videos. And then what was it?
I think he got into some.
Sims.
So
Choose
yeah,
aircrafts.
Stu's
Yep.
Aircraft Factory. That was a good
That
one.
was it.
Yeah, Stu's
Yeah.
Aircraft Factory produces much finer work than the Gilbertson Aero Factory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Much more precise work than anything I could ever hope to turn out. But
yeah,
that's that sanding block you saw me use was the one he recommended for doing the fiberglass stuff. All the other stuff he bought is all the stuff he recommended in that video. So I just went and bought it and was like, well, I'll start with a known and we'll go from there.
yeah. Well, you just said, would you say precision work, right? That's
I
a
said it. I
good
can't do it.
segue.
It's
Yeah. So on that topic, um, in the 2 weeks since we've last recorded, I've hardly done anything at all in the shop. I've done quite a bit of waiting on the parts that I've ordered for the left flap. I've been waiting on uh, Cherry Max rivets. That's a whole different fiasco. They will someday arrive. So I decided, thinking about the amount of work that's left to be done still on my empennage, because I haven't actually attached the control surfaces back there. I haven't done the tips on them. I haven't run any sort of wire for the trim stroke, all this sort of stuff. And realizing that this is just the wings and the empennage, like this thing is going to get much more complex. And so, um,
yeah.
in my real life, I have been recently trying to find ways to leverage AI to automate, either do one or two things, either teach me how to do things more quickly, or to automate mundane tasks that I have to do on a repeated basis. And so I decided to apply some of this to the airplane build. And so we talked about, I think you and I talked about briefly about the EAA webinars recently. And if you didn't get a chance to watch the one by Vic Syracuse, and I think it was basically just how to complete airplane projects.
Yeah, I have not seen that one, but I remember you telling me about it. I need to go
Yeah,
check that
very
out.
worthwhile. Very worthwhile. I actually got more out of it than I expected I would. Not that I know a lot about this stuff, but um, I found it very valuable. I'll probably actually end up watching that one again. But one of the things that he just said, sort of in passing, is that um, if you're going to do this and complete it, you need to know project management. You have to have project management skills. And so I decided to have AI help me learn project management and find the right tools to do it. So I've made pretty good progress on getting that sort of stuff organized. And I have a clearer picture of what it is that I need to accomplish. And in addition to that world of um, sort of artificial approaches to making this, or leveraging technology, I think I said last time that I'd ordered a 3D printer. It has arrived, and I've put it to good use on the airplane, going all the way back to what I said about precision work. The aileron push tubes, and I've talked about this before, probably in the last episode, about the precision that goes into making that thing 23 and 13/16 of an inch long, and then inserting the threaded rod ends. And so once I got into this is the work that I've done since the last time we talked. I worked on those threaded rod ends. So for those of you who are listening and can't see my hand gestures, it's just the aileron push tube. This is what's going to actually actuate the aileron, make it move. Is a almost 24-inch length of chromoly steel. It's about half inch in inside diameter, and then on each end of it there is a threaded rod end. So think of a piece of like a threaded screw, like a threaded bolt, except for one end of it has a sleeve, like a sleeve and a shoulder. The tube acts as a sleeve and it pops into the tube, but it's a very snug fit. It's a press fit to get it in there. And then once it's in, you need to drill this in two spots and rivet it in. And the length of that threaded rod end that fits inside the tube is only 5/8 of an inch. And you're using AN 470 84 rivets. So you're using rivets that are 4/32, or an eighth of an inch in diameter. So they need to have a 1/4 inch we need to have a 1/4 inch of edge distance. So the center of that hole that you're going to put a rivet through has to be at least a 1/4 inch away from the edge, the nearest edge of the material. Now let's put this kind of into perspective. It is, what did I say? It's 5/8 of an inch of material. Yeah, you got a 5/8 inch thing, and you need to use 4/8 of it to get these and these holes can't collide. So what you do is you you drill them 90 degrees out of phase. So think about one going in straight down. If the tube was laying flat, one hole would go straight down and then go 90 degrees. Another one would go horizontally through. And maintaining edge distance, you can drill those holes where those rivets miss each other by about a 1/16 of an inch and still have proper edge distance. If you have followed my build at all, this gives me a fair bit of anxiety to think that I have to drill this so precisely, as many parts as I've had to reorder. This is surely something that I am going to screw up and reorder it and then just screw it up again. And I've many opportunities to screw it up because I've got 4 rod ends for 2 push tubes, and who knows how many times I can go around and round and do this. But I got my new 3D printer, so I decided that I would experiment with creating a drill guide so I could drill these precisely. And that turned out to be, shockingly, a smashing success.
Yeah, that thing was awesome. I'm very, very envious. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, damn it, that is so much smarter than what I did. Yeah, because my drill guide was nothing but a V block. I'm like, yeah, I can make it. That's nice.
Yeah, and I have the V block I have a V block. I ordered it so that I could drill straight down. But my worry was, like, would I get the distance from the end of the tube or the end of the rod end, either one? Would I get that correct? And then also, I guess it's not super critical that they're exactly 90 degrees off of each other, just as long as they're not on the same plane.
Yeah,
yeah. So I thought, since I'm sitting here doing nerd accountant work and I'm waiting for things to process, I'll ask ChatGPT to, while it's teaching me project management, let's do another chat and teach me how to use Fusion 360 to design my own part to 3D print on a 3D printer that I just got. So all brand new, and it actually worked. Like, it actually was successful in getting a total novice to make a piece that really precisely did the job. So I'm stoked about that. That worked out. I'm proud of how that turned out. And then I got to the actual riveting part, and then I'm not proud of that at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I can't help you there.
Yeah. So you said before, when you did it, and I think you showed it in your video, that what happens is when you try to rivet, I think these are the longest rivets in the entire project, at least so far. These are -12, so they're 12.
But I mean, it shouldn't matter because it's only, the same amount sticking out as always.
And that's the thing. It shouldn't matter. If it's the correct length, it's the correct length, then it should squeeze no problem. So the call out for the rivet is it's a AN 470 AD 4-12 rivet. So it is 4/16 of an inch long. I know that, or 12/16 rather. It's a stupid way of saying it, but that's how it's measured. But when you insert it, the tail that's the shank of the rivet that's coming out the other end is obviously too long. And you measure it with the rivet gauge, and you can see that it's very clearly too long by probably at least a half of a rivet length. So I took the next smaller size, a -11 rivet, and put it through there, and that fit absolutely perfectly snug within the rivet gauge that shows you the proper length of an unsqueezed rivet. So I did that, and then I squeezed it, and it squeezed perfectly, like symmetrical. The shop head of the squeezed rivet was exactly the perfect height. And then when you look at it from the top, you realize that the diameter of the squeezed rivet is way too small. And the only thing I can guess is because you are riveting on a curved surface, that material distributes differently. And So apparently the extra long rivet call out is the correct call out. So then, all right, go to the long rivet and try to squeeze it. And it does what every rivet does every time it's too long. And they call it clinching. I call it folding over because that's what it just folds. It it twists in your hand. There's no way to keep it straight. And you think it's going, and then you hear a snap sound and it is folded over. And it's a useless piece of shite. Oh my God.
I fought it. In the end, I couldn't get the squeezer to work. I ruined several rivets. What I finally had to do, the only way I could fold it and do it by myself was I had to back rivet it. So I had to stick that thing down on the plate, hold onto the rod, and then use the rivet gun on the other hand on the dome head side and drive it down into the steel plate. And even then, it was still a pain in the ass to keep it from trying to twist it.
Okay. I'm glad I wanted to ask you about this because it sounds like what you're describing. Because when I remember that you said that and other people said that they have back riveted it.
I guess it wasn't really back riveting.
It's like backwards back riveting, really.
Yeah. I was using steel plate on the manufactured side or on the shop side.
On the shop side. So you're just using it like the world's biggest, flattest bucking bar, basically.
That's what I did.
Yeah, bucking against it. And so let's back up a little bit. I think the last time we did an episode, I said I was gonna weld it. And so
what happened?
I shopped that around. I wasn't just gonna just go, yeah, I welded like 3 things together. Let's just blast holes in this thing. So I grabbed the parts and drove out to to talk to some guys I know who are excellent welders and see what they thought. They don't work in the aircraft world. And from one of them, they thought, I could see how you could do it, but the wall of that chromoly is 35 thousandths, and it would be really easy to just blow through it
right away.
Yeah, especially for somebody of my skill level. I went to a welding supply shop that I go to occasionally and talk to them about it, and the guy there was like, "No, I wouldn't." He goes, "I would braze it," and I thought, "Cool." Let me go Google that or see what ChatGPT says about brazing. I know kind of what it is, but I don't have an oxygen acetylene torch, and that's a whole other thing. And then my last stop was to head over to the airport around lunchtime when everybody's gathered at Daryl's hangar and just ask everybody. Every one of these guys has made these before. It's like 10 guys sitting around a table, and they've all done this a bunch of times. And that was actually pretty interesting. They're like, don't weld it. That's stupid. And also, it's not as difficult as the whole world makes it look. Like, and you did your backwards back riveting thing. One of the guys there, he did it with a hammer. And I think what he did was, so he did it with a hammer. I think that he put his, like the dome head dimple die in a vise, and then just
whacked the backside of it until
he whacked the backside of it with a hammer, and that worked. And I thought, well, if nothing else, like sloppy work doesn't seem to matter for this part for all these guys. And then I showed them what I did with I had it there, and I had the drill guide, and I showed how I was able to drill the holes, and that came out. And Joe, who to me is like the king of all this, he's like, "Dang, man, that turned out really nice." And I'm like, "It did, except there are no rivets in it yet, and that's not nice." Actually, what I showed him is what I ended up doing. I happened to have the correct size Cherry Max rivets for that application. It's like a -8 grip length.
Oh, that's right. You were talking about using those.
Yeah, because when I on my last big road trip, when I stopped by Vans, I just bought 5 of every size Cherry Max rivets they had available. So I had 5 of them, but I need 8. And that's the first time that I've used the Cherry Max rivets, by the way. It's a little bit more work. You've got to, probably after every rivet, you have to take the collet off of the gun and extract the mandrel manually from the rivet gun. But it worked really, really well. They came out nice, and now I'm waiting on more. So the Cherry Max, the shipping receiving fiasco that I referred to earlier, I ordered Cherry Max rivets 4 weeks ago from Aircraft Spruce because I need them to finish up the aileron brackets and a couple of spots on the aft spar doubler that I need to just use a Cherry Max so I can get in there cleanly and upsize those holes. Those are on back order. So finally last week, I canceled that order from Spruce when I realized that Vans had those sizes in stock when I was ordering other stuff. And it's been 6 days since I placed that order for these. And the status when I log into my orders on the Vans web store is preparing shipment. It has been preparing shipment for 6 days for a couple handfuls of Cherry Max rivets. So that's getting frustrating that
Which is funny because you're the one who told me Vans had the hinges in stock, and I went and ordered them from them. They shipped, I think, later in the same day, and I had those hinges 2 days later here at the house.
I called them, I ordered them, and then I sent you a message and said, hey, they have those. And then you ordered yours, and then you got yours 4 days before mine showed up. So
And we
I
were
have,
like 10 miles apart.
yeah. Now, I will say this, because I have decided to become a more responsible builder and get a little bit into project management, there are different ways that you can visually, keep track of your project. I'm using like a Kanban board. It's like a sort of a visual representation. You can see tasks that are to do, tasks that are in process, tasks that are being held up by other things. And because I'm using a free software to do this, I can, as I'm creating new tasks, new things that need to be accomplished, I can create subtasks and I can create dependencies so that if I wanted to change the status of a particular task, like hanging the, let's say hanging the elevators on the horizontal stabilizer, I can't move it. I can't move it because there's subtasks that it's dependent on. They have to happen first. First, I have to attach the rod end bearings or whatever. All this to say, yeah. So now, and same thing with parts orders. I can, if I'm being held up by parts orders, I'm not having to kind of remember that this is happening, but that becomes a task that other things are called. They're called blocked. They're blocked by this, and nothing can happen until these things arrive, and then they come in, they update the status. So it is cleaner and easier than using a whiteboard, because after a while, for me, the whiteboard just gets kind of ignored. But it also means that while I'm waiting on parts, I've known that I have a lot of stuff that I can be working on, but now I exactly know what I can be working on and what I need to grab. And and I wanted to get out there and work today, and I had so many dang chores to do away from the shop. But I got to tell you, my shop is really clean, and it is also reiterated again for probably the 15th time, reconfigured. So I got a lot of cleaning done out there. It's ready to go. And I think that while I'm waiting for this other stuff to happen, I'm turning around in my chair because I've got my horizontal stabilizer hanging up on the wall behind me in my office. That's probably going to be the next thing I do, is get that thing down off the wall and just hang the elevators off it and start working on any odds and ends that I have to do with the trim tab, so I can be productive. I mean, that's got to happen at some point, right?
Speaking of those and fiberglass fairings, did you see the newsletter that came out today?
No.
With a link to, can't remember which place it was. I have to go look at it. I did mark it. Somebody makes a custom set of fiberglass fairings for the inboard edge of the elevators. So instead of them being open, which is what Vans leaves them as, or blocking them off like I was doing with the foam and the fiberglass, these are actual aerodynamic. They come to a trailing edge almost on that angle.
Really? Okay.
Edge.
So are you talking about in the what is it, the Vans Aircraft Builders newsletter today?
Yep, the one that came out today. If you look down through the vendor stuff, there's one in there. Designed by a former NASA engineer who owns an RV-8 and was able to get like 1.3 knots out of airspeed out of having those on or something.
I'm going to look at that.
Nice.
there's an account that I started following recently, I think on Instagram, called Fairings, etc. And it might be,
There's some cool stuff in there too. This is
yeah.
the same as them,
Oh,
but
so
yeah, I'm
this is
looking at
different. Okay.
this is different. I've been looking at them too because it's like, man, I really like that panache sharing.
Well, that's worth a look for sure.
It's only
Um,
worth taking a look at. I've already part of it covers the trim tab that I've already filled in, so it's like if I wanted to go this route, I would have to dig that out or figure out a way to attach this now. So I may be precluded from doing it. We'll see how much
yeah.
extra work I actually want to add to myself
Yeah.
for modifications.
Oh, hey, I wanted to, before I forget, I wanted to make a note on the topic of tools. You and I both belong to a Slack group for Vans aircraft builders, and it's not a secret. Like if you're building a Vans aircraft, you should seek it out and become a part of the conversation. But I didn't realize the Knipex pliers, which have a really unique mechanism that keeps the face, the jaws of the pliers always completely parallel to each other. Um, that Harbor Freight has a version of it that actually really kicks ass, and it's affordable because those Knipex pliers are really expensive and hard to justify. And
Yeah,
I
they're
I
80,
want a
90 bucks.
pair just because, yeah, because it can replace like an adjustable open end wrench because those jaws are always square, but you get a lot more torque and grabbing power because you're squeezing it like a pair of pliers. And I looked at the Harbor Freight ones; they're like 39 or $40, and there's always a sale every weekend at Harbor Freight.
That's
Um,
right.
and when I looked at them, the jaws are smooth face; they're not knurled at all. So that's actually um, a pretty good little bit of kit to be able to use on the airplane. And
Yeah, I could see that
the
being
reason,
useful.
oh yeah, and the reason that it came up inside the Slack group was somebody was talking about they've been using it for close quarters dimpling, which is always a pain in the ass. And they not only were they able to get enough leverage to dimple like -3 rivets on the skins, but also like screw holes. So that's pretty interesting. And I think the reason that he did it was because he had the pliers, and I think the shank on one of his dimple dies broke. So then he just took that pair of dies, and just cleaned them off and made them for a new purpose. So I'm going to experiment with that a little bit and see if that's something that can't make my life a little bit easier um, over the next 12 to 18 years of building this one airplane. I'm kidding. What I meant to say was the next 12 to 18 years of just building my left flap.
My left flap.
My
Um,
left flap. Isn't
your
there a
left flap.
movie? Oh, no, it's my left foot.
One other thing I've done lately,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a little nervous about doing it, but it's the whole, can it withstand public scrutiny or not? I showed you the schematics I had come up with for
Oh,
my
right.
power distribution system.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed or if you go over to Vans Air Force forums at all, but the other day I had nothing else going on because I was waiting on this other stuff to show up now for the wingtips. So I was like, you
Yeah.
know what the hell? I've tweaked these. I've looked at them a bunch. I just went ahead and made a post in the electrical discussion forum with what I was thinking. I threw my designs up there and just let it be out there in the public. Like, what do you guys think? And I got a lot of good feedback. It turned into a small heated discussion between a couple of people about lithium batteries versus not lithium batteries. And it's like, yeah, that's not what this is about. Um,
Yeah.
but I got some good
Well,
tips.
did you tell him though that you're priming your batteries? So talk about that for a little bit.
um, yeah, so it worked out really well. I mean, some people were getting a little into the weeds, I think, and some,
Mm-hmm.
made me think, okay, yeah, there's some failure modes I haven't really thought about with what I'm doing. But, one of the things that came up was a couple of people were put off by, I plan to have, now it's going to be just one basically hot battery bus where you can turn things on
Mm-hmm.
straight off of the battery. But again, that goes back to, I have an electrically dependent engine. So
Right.
some things I think are worth the risk. And, the caveat to that was, well, you should have the ability to remove all power from everything. That way, if you crash, you can remove power before it catches fire. And it's like, yeah, that's an after everything else has gone to hell kind of scenario. I
Yeah.
think keeping the engine running to the scene of the crash is more important to me than possibly a post-crash.
If that's the reason for it, if it's like you should do this because in case of a crash, you should instead just get one of those things that you put on the treadmill so that if you fall off, it turns off the treadmill. You just clip it on your shirt. So that
There you go.
when you're running away from the crash, it will remove power from the whole thing.
Like a jet ski, right? You fall off of the
Exact.
airplane
Yes.
and it just kills everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, if anybody goes digging around in the Vans Air Force forums, you'll find my post in there, and you can go look at these things. And more tweaking to be done, but it's turning into a decent-ish thing. It's giving me plans, anyways, and it's giving me, like you were talking about project management. It's now giving me more things to add to the. I need to order these switches. I need to order these fuses, this fuse blocks, and
Yeah. You've remained really engaged with your build process, even when you're thousands of miles away and not able to build. Two questions. Have you continued to aggressively seek out an engine after the eBay debacle? And then following on that, do you have any updates on your the status of your fuselage kit?
I'll answer the second one first. No updates on the fuselage.
Okay,
It's been
okay.
radio
Wait,
silence.
let's stop right there. Yeah, no updates on the fuselage. Next question is, when they contact you and they say that they are packaging, can you just tell them to throw my damn Cherry Max rivets in there so I can finally get those things?
While you're at it, I need you to go grab these Cherry Max rivets, throw them in the crate. Yeah, I will absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I'll make sure they throw some in. The engine. I never heard anything more. I did get my money back from eBay for that first engine. Never heard anything more from the proposed seller. I'm still very much thinking that if it was real, he sold it on Barnstormers to someone else and forgot to take the auction down and just didn't know how to deal with it. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Or it was a scam. Who knows?
Right.
There was another possible engine. It was located here in Texas. It was mostly pieces of an engine, honestly. And I talked to, it's being listed by a company, and I talked to them on the phone a couple of times to ask them specific questions about what's in there, what's not in there, because they were selling it for someone else. And there was enough stuff missing that I made them what I felt was a reasonable offer considering what I'd have to replace. And they rejected the offers. So I was like, yep, I'm not at a point where I'm like desperate for an engine. If the right one comes along, it'll come along. So I walked away from that.
This from one of these companies that lists like salvage aircraft?
No, this one, actually, they don't normally do reciprocating engine stuff. They mostly deal with turbine aircraft stuff. They just happen to have this engine kit or part of an engine kit in that they're just selling for somebody. So that didn't work out. I keep looking. I do still really like the idea of a Lycoming after all the alternatives and the ups and downs for all of them. A 360 would be great. I have thought about stepping down to a 320 and then compensating by putting some speed on it if I go with a 320 to offset the weight savings and get a little performance back. So I don't know.
Yeah, I compensate by lifting my truck, and that's a lot cheaper than getting the prop you're talking about.
Yeah. I did look at 320s for a while just to see if there was any 320s out there. And man, I thought I was on to something. I was going to call you and be like, man, there's two of them. But there's an auction on eBay right now for two turbocharged 320s off of a twin engine aircraft. And I think the opening bid right now is like $8,000 for the pair.
Oh, wow.
And I was sitting there looking,
maybe I'll put that in my kit helicopter.
I was like, man, that could be good. That's all kinds of spare parts. Yeah, it's in France.
Yeah.
In France with a local pickup only. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to France anytime
soon.
Did
you happen to catch the name of the of who was selling it?
I did not.
There is a gosh, and now I can't think. I can kind of see the name, but I can't pronounce it. But there's a guy, an RV8 builder in southern France that I've been talking to a long time on my channel, who's a really interesting guy. And when I say RV8 builder, I think that he is now in the process of building his second RV8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, I spent time this time last year. I was in Paris, and 6 months before that, I was there for about a month. And I wish it had worked out that I'd been able to go down there and check out his situation and go flying. So maybe that opportunity will come around again. And then if so, then
Absolutely.
I'll
Only
grab
ever
those.
flown over.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be. I know this is completely off topic for the channel, but I spent like 3 days in Normandy, and dang, that was a really awesome experience. And that's what you expect it to be, especially as a veteran, like you
Right.
have some like a vested interest in it. But it was even better than that. There were sort of unexpected things. So when you have the opportunity, definitely take it and don't rush it. It's worth. I think it's worth it for anybody to do, but certainly as a veteran.
It's on my list of places I got to go.
Yeah,
I got to go see. I've seen a lot that I don't ever want to see again, but there's
yeah,
much I still need to go do. So
yeah.
that's on that list.
One of the neat things. I don't even know. We didn't do like in terms of like the cemetery at Normandy. We didn't do a tour. We just went out and wandered around, and then it kind of occurred to me there must be like a directory of what's out here. So it is interesting and there is. You can just Google it, and you can find it for any of these cemeteries, and look for your last name, and you will find it. You will almost certainly find it in maybe multiple instances of it. And so not at the I did find it at the big cemetery at Normandy, but then there's another cemetery in Belleau Wood, which is for Marines. It's a significant place. That's where Marines were dubbed Teufelshunden or devil dogs by the Germans in World War One. And I found my namesake that turns out to be a distant relative who was a pilot who flew reconnaissance during World War One over there, and he's buried there. Yeah. Anyways, we are getting close to the 1 hour mark, and I wish that I had more to talk about in terms of what I've been building. Here's what I've been building for anybody who's interested in knowing about it. If you follow my channel, you know that I have for many, many years worked in the film and television industry as an armorer. And you also know that I leave for like 7 months at a time, and nothing happens on my airplane. And that's not the only part of my life that completely just comes to a screeching halt when I'm away working. So after this last prior year working, I decided that I was going to do what I could to shut that down and be more domestic. And so what I've been building is a business that I've been running for a few years in the background. And so that's part of why, other than waiting on parts, that I haven't been able to spend as much time in the shop as I want to, is because I do, for a time being, have to be a somewhat responsible adult while I expand this business bigger than it has, because I kept it small enough that I could still manage it while I was gone working on shows. So that's what I've been building, and we'll get back into building actual airplane parts and breaking them, and then building them again, and breaking them and building them again. And
Work
see
just
me.
gets in the way of everything.
It does, man.
Really
It really
inconvenient. I've
is the
talked to somebody
worst.
about this.
It really is the worst. But
Yes.
yeah, if I don't do it, because you joked, oh man, we could have both bought those 0320s, but I still haven't even ordered a fuselage kit yet. So I can't really responsibly order an engine before I've ordered the parts to make the canoe that it's going to stick on.
Oh, I have no business responsibly ordering anything else right now.
Yeah.
I have to finish sorting out the stuff I have.
Yeah. Well, let's see. When do you head out of town again next?
Monday. Get to go to Indiana for like 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks. Wow. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's just for anybody who's interested in listening, Tim and I are going to try to squeeze in another one before he leaves on Monday. Today's Tuesday. Maybe we can squeeze one in Sunday or sometime this weekend, and hopefully we'll have a lot more to talk about in terms of our recent building progress, especially me, because something's got to get done.
Get that flap done.
You can get that flap done over the next 12 or 18 years. I will get that left flap done.
Yeah,
All righty. So
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. This was episode 6.
That's right.
We are not experts in airplane building podcast. We'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
See y'all later.